United States has more than $7 billion in direct investment.
There's the deepening crisis in Indonesia, the world's fourth most populous country, where the U.S. is getting some of the blame. The Indonesian president is out of the country. He's been apprehending government protesters again, and there are unconfirmed reports of at least 4 more people having been killed. President Suharto is cutting short a foreign trip to go home. It's a difficult crisis for the U.S. because the U.S. has been supporting Mr. Suharto.
Indonesians who have been in the streets of this island nation demanding change right now.
Semua kemajuan di Indonesia itu dimotori oleh angkatan muda dan mahasiswa.
This diorama, the youth pledge in October 28, 1928, held in Jakarta, Jalan Keramat, number 106. In this place, the youth people from all of Indonesia, from Young Java, Young Sumatra, and Kalimantan, they meeting together to decide and then to build a nation. That's why I call it day. And the time they decided to build one nation, one country, one language. This is the background to settle of Indonesia.
In the beginning, the military rely on us on demonstrating in the street against Sukarno. Because if the military themselves move, they could easily be accused of coup d'etat. So we were standing on the same platform.
I, President, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces of the Republic of Indonesia, appoint Major General Suharto, where is the man? And I appoint him as Minister, Commander of the Army, and God willing, inshallah, I shall inaugurate him as such in, I think, in 1 or 2 days.
Since then, Suharto took over the country and slowly but surely become an authoritarian. Okay. We were also expecting in that time that by eliminating the communists and bringing down Sukarno, we will have a democratic Indonesia. It turned out what we had was another authoritarian government under Mr. Suharto. Well, later on, many of us things like that. No, we were simply manipulated by the military at that time. But as far as I can remember, we were cooperating at that time.
Kalau menurut pers barat 500 sampai 1 juta orang. Menurut Domo 2 juta orang. Menurut Sarwo Edi, yaitu komandan yang melaksanakan program pembunuhan atas perintah Harto, 3 juta. Yang ngomong begitu dengan bangga dia. Walaupun belum terbesar, yang terbesar yang dilakukan Hitler.
There's kind of the impressions that all of a sudden there's a movement in Indonesia, kind of a pro-democracy movement after about 30 years of peace and order and a successful development. Well, it's quite a wrong idea.
Sujud kami bagimu yang esa. Terima kasih atas karunia sandang pangan pembangunan kau limpahkan bagi negeri Indonesia.
Pemerintah Orde Lama itu meninggalkan hutang 10 miliar dolar, dan Soeharto sebagai tentara aktif waktu itu yang punya minat begitu besar pada masalah-masalah ekonomi memang membuktikan penyelesaian ekonomi sangat cepat, tapi itu hanya dalam indikator ekonomi. Karena strategi yang dipilih itu kemudian strategi pembangunan yang dipilih oleh Soeharto itu dikritik oleh gerakan mahasiswa tahun 73-74. Jadi Hariman tahun itu mengkritik pola dan strategi pembangunan yang berorientasi pada pertumbuhan dan mencari modal dari hutang luar negeri.
Now the trigger was actually the visit by the then Prime Minister of Japan, Tanaka, in January of 1974. Students, I suppose with the help of that army faction that was against Soeharto, managed to actually paralyze Jakarta during that visit for a few days. Resulted in, well, of course, arrests of the student leaders. And there were some army generals, again, who were involved at that time. And, of course, they lost their heads. But it also gave the first warning to the regime about corruption, about, and they seemed to actually come with at least rhetoric of equity and more justice and things like that. But then it quickly became clear that it was only rhetoric.
And the military sent troops and fencers and tanks to the campuses and closed down the campuses for several months. And then again, student leaders were taken to jail and they got about 2-3 years imprisonment.
Realizing this, the student activists post-1966, especially post-1970s, late 70s, 80s, they did not want to cooperate with the military anymore.
But anyway, during the 80s, because all political activities were prohibited from the campuses, the students started to create kind of discussions groups and then the journalistic trainings for the students.
The depoliticization in the campuses meant that students who actually wanted to be politically active could only do that outside of campus, and they did that in the form of so-called study groups or discussion groups. You go to a place and you get into a car and you're sped up to a place, and that's where the workshop is, and you're not even supposed to remember what it is, and come back and things like that. And this started for me personally in '95. We're up against a system of state terror, a very systematic control of the population based on intimidation and terror. I think in '89 it was more poignant, because it was like, you know, these are people I know and people who have the same books that, you know, that I do. But soon enough they were influenced by the writings of foreign Indonesianists, banned or unbanned. I mean, they wanted to know what other people outside Indonesia think about Indonesia. I've started feeling it in the discussion groups, always ending with, you know, what then is to be done. And by, I would date it to about 93, 94, it started to mean that workers and farmers started coming to our campuses.
Kelompok-kelompok diskusi itu betul-betul diskurs diskurs masalah-masalah yang kecenderungannya ya memang akademik dan teoritik. Tapi ada mahasiswa-mahasiswa yang betul-betul memikirkan persoalan masyarakat, yang orientasinya juga entah community organizer atau community development program.
And then since the political activities inside the campus were prohibited, the students started to seek for allies outside of the campuses. And then because of the discussions, they found out that, okay, let's start with the land dispute, with cases, with the peasants, because that's one of the most crucial problems in Indonesia.
What I did at the time is to go to the workers area, which is slum area, a really slum area. I even shocked when I was in Surabaya at the time, because before I imagined that the worker who work in the factory is not like that. This reality shocked me.
Wahai pengusaha-pengusaha keparat, dengarkan baik-baik. Kami di sini tidak akan merelakan negara kami diinjak-injak oleh kaum kapitalisme.
At that time, about 20,000 workers were there. They gathered together, and we wanted to have a rally to the governor's office.
Nah, ada komandan tentara yang datang dan mereka mencoba memprovokasi, justru membuat black propaganda bahwa mengatakan teman-teman mahasiswa ini adalah perusuh, teman-teman sudah ditangkap, mereka sekarang menjerit-jerit di kantor polisi dan jangan dipercaya apa yang diomongkan oleh mahasiswa ini. Nah, ketika komandan ngomong itu, saya katakan terhadap buruh pekerja yang ada di situ, semua terserah Anda semua. Apa yang saya katakan dan apa yang dikatakan oleh komandan tentara itu, buruh-buruh sudah tahu siapa yang benar dan siapa yang salah dan siapa yang paling benar. Apakah mahasiswa, PRD, ataukah dari tentara itu sendiri. Nah, ketika itu buruh mengacungkan tangannya, itu hidup mahasiswa, hidup mahasiswa. Maka saya langsung ditangkap.
I didn't run because, first, because I couldn't run. Second, because I didn't want to run, because I'm not a criminal. The three of them grabbed me in the arms, and the other, who was on my back, they started to beat my head with their stick. And finally, 22 students got arrested. And during the investigations, I told the police who was in charge of my investigations that this is all my responsible because I was the chairperson of this PPBI.
Being accused by the judge with 9-year sentence to jail.
We need your sympathy and we need your political support for our struggle. Thank you.
Stop. Yeah.
Jadi saya sangat merasa pesimis bahwa perjuangan demokrasi di Indonesia ini akan mengalami kebuntuan politik itu pada saat terjadi peristiwa 27 Juli, ketika semua kawan-kawan pro-demokrasi yang radikal maupun tidak radikal itu digubuk habis, dipenjarakan oleh rejim militer Orde Baru. Tetapi optimisme saya itu begitu kuat muncul kembali ketika terjadi krisis ekonomi yang melanda Indonesia. Saya kemudian percaya lagi dengan pengalaman-pengalaman negara lain bahwa kita pun bisa memunculkan tokoh-tokoh baru yang punya potensi-potensi politik yang lebih maju dari mereka yang sudah ditangkap.
International Monetary Fund, but he says they may not be enough to battle the country's economic crisis. He is calling on the international community for more help. Mr. Suharto
basically illustrated that it was business as usual. That if you wanted to solve the economic crisis, you had to make pretty drastic changes, and that included institutional changes and closing down companies or banks, irrespective of who it belongs to. But this was not done, and business as usual, meaning that you still made exceptions, you still extended facilities to the children of the president as well as to those close to him in the face of the crisis. So I think that was sort of the first part of the whole mishandling of the crisis.
Hari ke hari ini semakin telanjang saja hal seperti itu. Rakyat semakin tidak mengalami freedom from fear, rakyat semakin tidak mengalami bebas dari kemiskinan.
Kami sering makan di suatu warung. Terus tiap hari kami makan di sana, dan yang berjualan di sana itu tua menanyakan kepada kami, bagaimana mahasiswa sekarang? Barang-barang udah naik, harga beras sudah naik, kok diam-diam saja? Kok nggak turun demonstrasi? Kami merasa ditampar pipi kami.
A traditional, one could say, a student protest during that time started early in the morning at around 7 o'clock, with the students gathering together at the podium, and everyone who wanted to take the word was allowed to speak to the students, not only Senate elders but also junior students. And after 2 hours of talking, the students formed a procession and hold a march around the campus or to specific monuments or buildings at the campus. And in the early afternoon they had arts performances where they sang songs or where they performed small theater plays where they very often imitated politicians. And protests needed to be peaceful and needed to stay on campus, because as soon as the students tried to leave the campus, they had to encounter the police forces, they had to encounter the military that was right outside of the campus gates all the time. And the whole demonstration day usually ended at around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and the crowd dissolved peacefully.
I would agree with those who are cynical about the Indonesian student movement, saying that There is no intellectual basis, and it's just a mass rally. It's just like theater, or form over content. I mean, like more form.
At first, the offer comes from Wiranto, the offer, and he comes from military. They want us to have a dialogue with the government. A student and the government have a dialogue in an amusement park. I don't know what to say.
With the re-election of Suharto in early March, the student demonstrators started to think about how they could widen the audience for their actions.
Artinya kita sangat percaya bahwa Suharto hanya akan turun kalau terjadi sebuah aksi-aksi massa yang cukup besar, menciptakan sebuah kekuatan people power.
Forum Kota mempunyai prinsip tidak kompromi terhadap kekuasaan. Artinya siapapun yang berkuasa di elit politik, Forum Kota tidak pernah melakukan kompromi politik dengan mereka.
Rakyat itu barang banyak dikuasai hanya oleh segelintir anak-anak Suharto.
I remember an officer consulted me by asking me, whom should we talk to from student community? I say, you cannot talk to anybody.
Tapi yang benar kamu ngomong. Alhamdulillah. Jangan seenaknya aja. Terima kasih, Pak. Saya juga amankan Anda. Hati nurani saya sudah terwakili oleh Anda.
They don't have leader in the sense of student leader in 1966. This is a completely different generation. This is a completely different method of struggling. So it is very difficult. It was very difficult to bribe them. In politics, you have to bargain. For them, they are moralists. No space, no room for bargaining. And this put the military in a very difficult situation in dealing with the student.
Jadi pada tanggal 2 April tahun 1998, Komite Perjuangan Rakyat untuk Perubahan, satu organisasi yang di tingkat mahasiswa yang relatif radikal di Yogyakarta, melakukan aksi dengan membawa tuntutan turunkan harga dan turunkan Suharto. Aksi ini sebenarnya sudah melibatkan banyak sekali elemen rakyat ya. Para pengamen juga ikut terlibat dalam memberikan pernyataan-pernyataan sikap mereka. Gerakan Pelajar Cinta Indonesia atau GAPCI, kemudian ibu-ibu rumah tangga juga turun untuk memberikan satu dukungan politik dan memberikan statement secara terbuka di aksi itu. Aparat militer yang saat itu memblokade supaya mahasiswa tidak bisa keluar kampus. Sementara keinginan mahasiswa adalah keluar kampus dan bisa bersatu dengan kekuatan rakyat. Pada saat aksi itu, hampir semua aktivis mahasiswa yang melakukan aksi itu digebukin oleh aparat militer. Mereka bahkan menyerang penonton-penonton yang sama sekali tidak terlibat dalam aksi itu. Banyak sekali korban-korban yang terjadi pada saat aksi itu terjadi.
The Indonesian students were up, especially in '98, were up against a lot in the sense that if the regime would strike, they would intellectuals, they would strike the younger intellectuals first, students, because they're usually not known. So they were up against arrests, disappearances. Some of them lost their lives. They were murdered.
There's one student already missing, His name is Pius. He's one of us. He's not in the University of Indonesia students, but he is students also, and he is very active, and he's missing now.
Penculikan terhadap aktivis mahasiswa yang terakhir, yang tahap kedua, itu terhadap mereka pertama kelompok-kelompok mahasiswa PRD dari Partai Rakyat Demokratik yang utama ya pertama, karena mereka adalah satu kelompok mahasiswa yang paling militan dan radikal lah mungkin di Indonesia pertama dalam melawan Soeharto.
Tanggal 12 Maret dia mengadakan konferensi pers di YLBHI Jakarta. Nah, sepulang dari YLBHI itu dia bersama 3 orang temannya, yaitu Herman, terus Raharjo Waluyojati, terus Faisal Reza gitu. Sekarang nggak tahu, rimbanya nggak ada gitu. Kalau saya punya insting dia masih ada itu, dia masih ada tapi berada di pihak aparat.
Akibat dari proses penculikan itu sebetulnya telah melipat gandakan radikalitas mahasiswa sebetulnya. Pada tahap-tahap awal memang itu semacam teror ya, membuat mahasiswa Indonesia mundur. Tapi itu hanya dalam waktu yang sangat pendek. Proses itu justru berbalik menjadi satu kesadaran mahasiswa untuk anti terhadap manipulasi kekuasaan, anti militer macam-macam. Dan itu mendorong proses percepatan yang luar biasa besarnya.
Enggak, saya enggak khawatir tentang keamanan saya. Saya yakin di sini pun saya bisa nggak aman gitu. Di sana nggak aman.
Rakyat bersatu, adili Soeharto. Rakyat bersatu, adili.
Ya, saya kadang ikut demonstrasi.
Adili Soeharto. Rakyat bersatu.
Yang namanya intelijen ini sangat merisaukan gerakan mahasiswa karena mereka mengambil informasi yang banyak dari gerakan mahasiswa. Kemudian itu dipakai untuk memukul gerakan mahasiswa. Intel itu masuk ke dalam kampus, yang sebenarnya dalam konteks otonomi kampus tidak boleh sama sekali. Ketika Intel itu masuk ke dalam kampus, dia diketahui membawa pager, dan ketika pagernya berbunyi, mahasiswa kemudian tahu kalau itu Intel, kemudian mereka menangkap dia, memeriksa dompet dia, kemudian memeriksa isi tasnya, dan menemukan pesan-pesan yang menunjukkan bahwa dia adalah seorang Intel. Kemudian hampir seluruh mahasiswa yang ada di sekitar situ tidak bisa mengendalikan emosinya, kemudian memukul dia sampai kepalanya kalau tidak salah hancur. Dan itu tidak terkontrol sama sekali karena di tengah massa. Salah satu kejadian di filsafat, kawan-kawan sudah mau menghabisi dan membunuh dia. Tetapi waktu itu saya bilang ini tidak mungkin terjadi, nggak bisa terjadi. Kalau terjadi, ini akan merusak reputasi gerakan mahasiswa sendiri.
One of the missing people suddenly re-emerged and was brave enough to talk to the media.
Yeah, it was Friday night. March 13. They brought me with car, blindfolded and handcuffed. They asked me to lay down on this mat with both my hands and my feet were tied to this bed. And they start the interrogation with electric shock. The question is about my identity and whether I know some people. Like Andi Arief, for example. They asked me, do you know where Andi Arief is? And then the other is about what is the program of the PRD? That's the third. And then the second is why PRD support East Timor. After I explain why we support East Timor, they say, you don't know East Timor. We know more East Timor because we were there for years. And the other thing, what they say, which is very fundamental, is their sentiment against Chinese. You know, they told me that you know that it's better to organize the movement against Chinese. You better burn the Chinese houses, Chinese shops, rather than organize workers, students, and so on. This is a clue actually who they are.
Ada 11 orang Kopassus untuk apa yang disebut tim mawar penculikan terhadap 9 orang. Tapi sebetulnya ini hanya scapegoat ya, ini kambing hitam karena mereka hanya pelaku operator di bawah, bukan pengambil decision untuk melakukan penculikan.
The special forces were very discredited because it became clear that the special forces had abducted Pius Lustri Lanang in Bogor outside of Jakarta.
Jadi pada tanggal 5 Mei tahun 1998, setelah kita melakukan aksi di Boulevard 2 April itu, kita bersama Solidaritas Masyarakat untuk Reformasi atau Somasi, yang merupakan satu organisasi mahasiswa yang didirikan oleh kawan-kawan mahasiswa Universitas Sanata Dharma, melakukan aksi massa yang dimulai dari Universitas Sanata Dharma, kemudian dengan tujuan melakukan rally ke DPRD kalau tidak salah waktu itu. Ya, perlawanan politik itu dari pagi sampai malam hari, dan saya ingat betul sampai jam 4 pagi itu mahasiswa tidak tidur. Setelah situasinya begitu aman ya, sekitar jam-jam 12 gitu, itu kita menemukan satu mayat yang memang di samping jalan ketika itu ya, dipukul oleh aparat dan mati, yang kemudian namanya diabadikan lewat jalan sekarang ini, itu Moses Gatotkoco. Nah, dia adalah seorang aktivis mahasiswa juga yang dipukul oleh aparat pada saat aksi massa itu berlangsung itu.
Saya dosen di Universitas Trisakti yang kebetulan berkantor di lantai 6 ini. Yang waktu peristiwa 12 Mei itu bertindak sebagai salah satu pembicara mimbar bebas. Ada 6 pembicara, saya salah satu.
Saya berangkat dari rumah jam 8 pagi, terus sampai di kampus. Tadinya saya mau ikut belajar, cuman teman saya bilang nanti mau ada demonstrasi.
Nah, setelah selesai mimbar bebas, itu kemudian mahasiswa bergerak ke DPR, MPR.
Nggak berapa jauh dari kampus kita udah dihadang sama polisi, sama aparat. Katanya nggak boleh ke gedung MPR-DPR.
Setelah jam 4 sore, agak mundur sedikit, mahasiswa yang ikut di luar itu sudah tinggal 200 sampai 300, dan mereka duduk-duduk di jalan, kemudian diminta untuk segera mundur, dan tercapai kesepakatan bahwa mahasiswa mundur, petugas pun mundur.
Karena ada salah satu mungkin bukan alumni ya, bekas mahasiswa juga Trisakti, memancing mahasiswa Trisakti supaya keluar kembali ya. Ada semacam provokasi, ternyata bisa ditahan oleh Satgas kita.
Kira-kira jam 4:30 lebih, itu tanpa diketahui sebabnya, pasukan menyerbu mahasiswa Trisakti.
Maju terus! Maju terus!
Terus saya ngerasa badan saya kok sakit gitu loh, semutan apa gitu, nggak bisa lari lagi, langsung lemes. Udah, terus lama-lama saya udah jatuh, terus pingsan.
Polisi naik ke atas ke flyover. Ada yang datang dari sana, ada yang ke sana, dan mereka menembak ke arah kampus.
Saya persis ngeliatnya di flyover dan di balik pagar.
Di samping pasukan bergerak di sini, gas air mata dibuang, helikopter berputar-putar. Helikopter berputar-putar mengelilingi kampus dan dalam jarak yang relatif dekat sekali ya.
Di lingkungan Trisakti udah dilimuti oleh gas air mata ya. Saya juga nggak bisa ngeliat lagi, udah mata, udah perih semua nih, udah muntah-muntah. Terus saya dengar lagi saudara Endo juga tertembak ya.
Ketika saya buka pintu dan saya mau masuk, ini gas air mata begitu banyak di dalam. Jadi saya tutup lagi untuk saya selamatkan diri, saya keluar, saya tutup. Dan begitu saya melangkah 2 langkah di depan ini persis saya tertembak di sini. Dan saya terjatuh.
Pada saat itu ya saya nggak bisa ngomong apa-apa lagi ya. Saya nggak bisa membantu teman saya yang udah tertembak apa. Ya saya nggak bisa berkata apa-apa lagi waktu kejadian ini.
Yogi, ngomong yuk. Di mana?
Ini posisi korbannya. Itu saudara Elang itu di sini meninggalnya. Saudara Elang. Ini saudara Hafidin di dekat tempat parkir, di dekat yang bendera saudara Heri Hartanto, dan di teras ini saudara Sofyan Rahman. Gitu.
Sebenarnya saya pengen mau marah ya gimana, kita nggak bisa apa-apa, kita nggak punya senjata ya.
Sebelumnya ketika perundingan saya sudah minta bahwa ada korban di dalam, minta dikirim ambulans, tapi Kolonel Arthur Damanik yang saya ajak bicara tidak mau mengirim ambulans.
The shooting, the killing of 4 innocent students of the Trisakti University on May 12th. It was so dramatic. TVs, radios, newspapers, all of them put dramatic stories of the killings. People were angry. On May 13, the students were buried, and long queues of people walked from the campus to the burial grounds. In the evening, people started to run amok.
Mereka tahu benar betapa masa ini sudah demikian remuk digempur oleh krisis ekonomi yang mendalam. Sekarang mereka menjadi marah benar ketika mendengar ada penembakan mahasiswa di Universitas Trisakti.
what you see in Indonesia on the day after Trisakti is a retaliation of the masses against the government forces. But the retaliation takes victims on the certain groups of the people, of the population, that is Chinese people, because there is already an animosity between the Chinese group and the so-called indigenous population.
Because they always blame on the Chinese if something should go wrong to them. They always blame on the Chinese. They say because the disparity or the gap between the rich and the poor are just too far apart. Not all Chinese have the money. I don't have much money. We work very hard. You know, I obtain my livelihood not through corruption or collusion or nepotism, not at all.
Kondisi psikologis moral outrage, kemarahan moral inilah yang digunakan justru oleh jaringan pelaku kekerasan politik ini dengan menebarkan desas-desus, dengan melakukan provokasi lewat isu-isu yang disebarkan, entah lewat media massa maupun oleh dari pembicaraan dari mulut ke mulut, yaitu isu rasial, anti-Cina, anti-Kristen, dan juga isu seakan-akan mahasiswalah yang menjadi penyebab bencana ini.
Mas, lumayan.
Well, it is an organized crime by dirty hands. Who do you think organized it? I don't know. That's a question I like to answer.
Dari pimpinan saya udah minta pasukan, karena masukannya kurang, mereka minta uang, minta uang. Nah, kalau nggak salah dengar saya 125 juta. Ya 3 hari sebelum kejadian. Lalu manajer yang di sini, yang pengelola di sini tidak menanggapi.
Terus masuk. Bukapan lagi diskon besar-besaran.
Kita tuh selalu merasa bahwa isu SARA itu memang dibuat oleh pemerintah. Menurut saya ada ya trigger-trigger yang membuat orang-orang yang memang sengaja melakukan itu. Karena dalam pola gerakan kami aja di ITB itu selalu dihindarkan, kita selalu memprediksikan ini isu pasti dibalikin ke SARA nih. Cepat bikin semua antisipasi agar tidak belok ke SARA. Fokuskan musuh kita tuh siapa, kesalahan itu ada di mana. Itu selalu kita buat karena kita selalu percaya bahwa itu adalah rekayasa yang pemerintah aja menghidupkan ke SARA.
Karena personilnya kurang, jadi kalau emang ada uang sekian, saya sanggupin, dijamin aman. Ada mau nggak uang gitu? Saya lihat sendiri itu manajer di sini, di istilahnya marah-marahi oleh direkturnya. Gitu. Karena kebodohan dia gitu, karena kenapa nggak dikasih, kenapa permintaannya, atau ditawar pun gitu kan bisa ditawar kalau itu kemahalan.
The students were angry. They were more or less quite neutral in terms of political interests. And various students' organizations from various campuses started to launch their protests. And finally, they went to the parliament building and occupied the building. At one point, I think about 500,000 students occupied the building.
Kita butuh perubahan, gitu. Butuh presiden baru. Gitu. Melihat kondisi seperti itu, akhirnya saya ngerasa wah ini seperti tadinya perjuangan yang kayaknya nggak akan pernah selesai.
Ini ada benang merah yang sama bahwa di seluruh daerah, bukan hanya Jakarta, itu menuntut agar Soeharto turun gitu. Ada benang merah di situ, bukan hanya Jakarta gitu, tapi daerah-daerah yang lain.
After that day, I believe that we have the power to
to demonstrate our feelings that we really don't want him anymore.
Ya gitu, saya nggak pernah membayangkan akan terciptanya kondisi masa yang seperti ini gitu.
I felt proud. I felt proud to be a part of. I realized that it was a part of history. It was a history in the making, and it was really people power.
Now, farmers, workers, students, housewives, stockbrokers, everyone in the country are standing up against Suharto. But only one single player still defending that old man. It was ABRI. It was the armed forces. It is only a matter of two choices for the armed forces: to defend the Suhartos or to defend the country.
Secara tiba-tiba tanpa komando, sekitar 60 sampai 80 pasukan Kostrad itu mengokang senjata mereka dan siap menembak gitu. Dan senjata itu diturunkan kembali gitu. Sesudah melewati peristiwa itu 2 hari 3 hari kemudian kami lihat, kita hampir mati waktu itu di sana gitu.
Saya memutuskan untuk menyatakan berhenti dari jabatan saya sebagai Presiden Republik Indonesia terhitung sejak saya bacakan pernyataan ini pada hari ini, Kamis 21 Mei 1998.
Saya bersama rekan-rekan itu seolah-olah bersiap untuk mati ketika mau ke sana gitu. Lalu sampai di sana ternyata sebuah euforia gitu kan.
So when I saw the television and I saw him declare that he resigned, I was crying. I cried because it was so suddenly. I never thought that he would go down so fast. Not when I'm in the prison. I thought about all the friends that has gone, all the friends that has been kidnapped and still not found. All the things that we have done. So I thought about the history of our struggle, and that made me realize that how precious it was, the struggle that we have done before, because we did it, and finally he went down, so we did it.
Ada kebebasan pers, ada kebebasan berpendapat. Tetapi di sisi lain, ada persoalan-persoalan politik yang sangat mendasar yang sebenarnya menjadi akar dari sekian persoalan kita, seperti pencabutan di fungsi ABRI misalnya. Sama sekali tidak dilakukan oleh dia.
We are not allowed to really pressure the military to investigate about who killed the student, who organized the riots, who did the kidnapping, who are responsible for the disappearance.
Dan sebetulnya setelah Soeharto jatuh bulan Mei tahun 98 kemarin, tidak secara otomatis soal-soal itu juga terjawab. Letnan Jenderal Prabowo itu Pangkostrat, kemudian Muhdi itu Komandan Jenderal Kopassus, kemudian juga Kolonel Khairawan itu dari Komandan Grup 4 Kopassus. Tapi mereka hanya, kalau Prabowo hanya dicopot jabatan dan dipensiun percepat, sementara yang dua ini hanya dicopot jabatan tanpa prosesi hukum. Banyak sektor tingkat pelanggaran hak asasi tetap tinggi.
Sipil betul-betul dalam ujian yang sangat kritis, karena kalau kita mau membuat kategori atau definisi tentang keadaan sekarang ini adalah transisi demokrasi.
Kami akan berjuang
Dan kami harap di seluruh dunia semua gerakan pro demokrasi juga mau melakukan dan punya keberanian untuk menumbangkan rezim di negaranya masing-masing. Itu tanggung jawab moral kami untuk membangun dunia yang lebih demokratis gitu.
A very amazing fact about this student movement in Indonesia is that there were no student leaders, and the strength of this fact was of course that the military or the police forces could not crack down on them. They could not simply take the leaders, the thinkers away and put them into jail and the movement would crumble. But because so many organizations, so many universities throughout Indonesia took part in this struggle, it snowballed and it became unstoppable.
If you see something wrong, if you see something unfair, and if you think that you have a willingness, you have a sense, and you think you can have strength to be part in changing that unfair situation, I think you will do the same thing.
This most recent student movement is the one that is really most independent from the political elite. And in a way, it's a good beginning.
Pesan saya pada angkatan muda, jangan belagak tidak mengerti. Kalian itu cukup mengerti apa yang harus kalian lakukan. Lakukanlah yang terbaik untuk Indonesia dan untuk diri kalian sendiri. Jangan belagak bodoh. Kalian cukup pandai. Kalian cukup punya keberanian. Kalian cukup punya keahlian mempersatukan semua angkatan muda. Bergerak terus sampai tercapai tujuan, dan selamat